Hi everyone, welcome back to the Wonder of Anime podcast. I'm your host, Lisa. I am a multimedia content creator, and my work spans across my blog, my YouTube channel, and of course, this podcast. This week, I'm joined by the amazing Victoria L. Johnson. She is a writer, host, and podcast with over 10 years of experience reporting on music, anime, comic books, and film and TV. It can be found in several outlets, including Complex, Teen Vogue, Vulture, Polygon, Mashable, and Vibe. Victoria currently hosts the Sailor Moon Fan Club podcast, a 3-year-long running show where she interviews incredible Sailor Moon fans. Previous guests include Sweetie, Baby Tate, Mercedes Monet, formerly known as Sasha Banks. The podcast has been featured in Mic and Insider, nominated for a Black Podcasting Award, and named by Nerdist as one of the 18 geek and nerd podcasts with outstanding Black hosts, and by Audible as one of the best anime podcasts for enthusiasts and newcomers alike. Victoria regularly produces and moderates panels for conventions, including San Diego Comic-Con, New York Comic-Con, and Anime NYC. In 2019, she hosted the Megalobox panel for TMS Entertainment and Anime NYC. She also produced and moderated the popular panels celebrating 30 years of Sailor Moon, celebrating 25 years of Toonami, Black Trailblazers in the anime industry, and Nerds on Hip Hop, bridging the gap between anime and hip hop, among others. Victoria is also writing a hip hop inspired Magical Girls comic book and writing a YA novel about a Black detective. Woo! Victoria, these credits! Can I say we have a stacked guest here on the podcast?
I realized, I was like, this is long. I should have.
No! Make people read this. You have these bios. I need everybody to come correct with their experience on the show. And of course, I'm reading it and I'm like, yes, that's my girl. I was at that panel.
You
I've been on this show. No, I love it. And obviously, it just speaks to your credibility and who you are as someone who knows what they're talking about, which is exactly why I wanted you on the show this week. But before we get into the main part of our show where you're going to be schooling us, I do want to ask a little bit about, because my listeners may be, of course, familiar with you. I've had you previously on the podcast. I've been on your podcast, the Sailor Moon Fan Club podcast. I don't know if people know, but I'm actually the president of the Sailor Moon Fan Club podcast fan club. Like, I don't have no merch yet, but I am the president.
It's only because the merch doesn't exist yet.
It will. I'm going to make myself like a Letterman jacket. Like, they're going to be like, girl, what you crossed? I crossed the Sailor Moon Fan Club podcast.
Listen.
They'll be like, you need to calm down. But I do love the podcast. And if people aren't familiar with the podcast, if you could tell us a little bit about it and how you kind of got the idea to start this podcast.
Yeah, so Sailor Moon Fan Club podcast is kind of how it sounds. It's literally just like I interview Sailor Moon fans. So it's like every guest is a part of the Sailor Moon Fan Club. And I interview them about themselves mostly, and then a little bit about Sailor Moon. So we're talking about, what's their favorite episode, favorite characters, but also like, what are they up to? Like, Lisa, like, what's your podcast? What's that about? I have book authors on. It's like, what's your book about? How did you write, like, what inspiration to write this? And so it's kind of this idea that the Sailor Moon Fan Club is filled with just like amazing, incredible people, and we all also happen to be Sailor Moon fans.
I, of course, love that. I've been on the show. I love the show. And something that I feel like if people haven't listened to the show is how much of an impact Sailor Moon has, where you'll have, like, especially the book authors, the artists that you've had on, even like Sweetie, like they talk about the inspiration of Sailor Moon in their careers, regardless of what their careers are later on in life. And I just, as a fan, as somebody who's like very sentimental about things, that's like my favorite part, is seeing how people are like, yeah, I saw this when I was 5, and now this book kind of was inspired by Sailor. I'm like, yes.
Yeah, there's been so many times on the podcast where they were like, if I didn't get into Sailor Moon, I wouldn't be where I am now. And that's just so cool to me, because I'm like, wow, like this show really changed lives. Changed my life, obviously. I'm here
Yeah.
because of the show.
Change the game. Like,
Mhm.
who else?
Who else?
Nobody. um So speaking of the show, I mean, you have had 100+ episodes.
Hmm.
If you can think at the top of your head, what are some of your favorite guests or favorite moments that you have had doing the podcast?
Ooh, okay. So I love the episode with Morgan Jerkins a lot. So we get into Afrofuturism in Sailor Moon, which is not a connection I made before until we started like talking about it, and then we were like, ooh, and this and that and this, and we were just kind of like going back and forth on different ideas. I loved our episode. It was really fun. Like you're just really fun to talk to. Plus, I think we ended up talking like for like an hour even afterwards, which was really fun when that
That
happened.
cemented our friendship.
Yeah, yeah. Like I've made friends through this podcast, and that's like, oh, it's just like makes me really happy. Because like the same thing, like we'll have those like hour conversations afterwards. It's like, oh shoot, are we friends? Are we friends now?
I think we friends.
We're friends. And then who else? I'm like forgetting everyone who's been on the show. Um, Sweetie was really cool. Obviously, it was like the first really big guest I had on the show. And I think like with her, like she was when it comes up a lot with some different people where she was like, I didn't know other black women were into Sailor Moon, were into anime, and just like being able to show like, yeah, we're out here, like we do this, we love it. That was really nice. Yeah, man, yeah. I'm gonna leave it there. But there's been so many. There's been so
there,
many.
there, there has been, and the Sweetie episode, I bring that up all the time. I always tell people to listen, and not for the reasons like somebody might think. Like, you know, when you do a podcast and you get like a big name guest, it's like, oh, we had this person on. But Sweetie's episode, for anyone who is going to listen, she sounds like she's with one of her homegirls. Like when she, like, it's crazy because I think I've only listened to the episode once, and I remember her in detail telling you about like her relationship with her godmom,
Hmm.
who like they're very close. They're actually very close in age, and she's
Yeah.
the one who got her into Sailor Moon, and she always called her Chibi Moon,
Hmm.
and it's like that like emotional connect. Like she was just from the gate. Like let me tell you this emotional
Yeah.
backstory, and it's just I'm not because you're my friend and because this is one of my favorite podcasts, but you have this ability when you have these guests on where they're like completely vulnerable no matter who it is, whether it's a big name, a voice actor, one of your content creating friends, like everybody just comes to the table ready to talk about Sailor Moon and the impact emotionally, and it's like yes. um, so before we get into the show, the other question that I had, because you, aside from doing the podcast, you know, we talk about the panels and stuff that you. This is actually the second to last question. We talk about like the other events that you do. You recently had a Sailor Moon movie night last
Hmm.
week, where you showcased one of the movies at a bar local to you.
Hmm.
And then over the summer, you had like a live event as well. We did a live recording of the podcast, and it was like a fun day drinking type of situation. How did you get the idea to do those, and do you have more of those coming for the next year?
Ooh, good question. I think this is the first time someone's asked me this. So I've always kind of wanted, I forgot what started it, but like I wanted to do like a Moonies con actually originally. Because I was just like, you know, continuously thinking about like ways to expand the brand, but also just like ways to like bring Sailor Moon fans together. Because I'm like, through the podcast, I'm like, man, like I want to meet people who've been on the podcast. Most of us have recorded, actually, all of us have recorded over the internet. And luckily, I've been able to meet a lot of people who've been on the show since then. But just like constantly thinking of ways to like, I think the big thing for me is like community and like building community and like building spaces for us to kind of feel like seen and have fun. And then just thinking of kind of events I would like to go to as a Sailor Moon fan. And then I look and I'm like, why is nobody doing this? I'm going to do it. So the first one was a Sailor Moon Day Party, which kind of came from the Moonies Con idea. Um, it was basically the same event, but I just like changed the name because I felt like Sailor Moon Day Party sounded funner than Moonies Con. And yeah, so that was like at the live podcast episode. We had DJs. I had a nail tech come and she gave or two nail techs and they gave people free nail designs, Sailor Moon nail designs for 2 hours, and then afterwards they could pay. And there was an astrologist there who was giving free readings for 2 hours, and then afterwards, you know, you had to pay. Yeah, and it was just really fun. Like I was just like, this is. It just felt so fun. And then like the Sailor Moon S movie, you know, it's a Christmas movie, so I've been wanting to stream that or play it somewhere and like invite people. I really wanted to do like a movie theater kind of thing, but a lot of those, you know, gets into legalities. So I was just like, oh, like I found this bar. My friend does a bingo night there every so often, and she told me like they let you host events there for free. And so I was like, oh, this is cool. And they had like a little projector in the back, and they're like, yeah, if you want to do a screening, we got it. And so I was just like, this could work. This could work. And then I didn't even know they were gonna decorate like the place for Christmas for the holidays. So it looked really Christmassy and cozy. They got like a little fake fireplace back there and a Christmas tree, and it was nice. And I'm just always happy. Like people come out and they thank me for the throwing the events, and I'm just like, yeah, it's something I wanted to do as a Sailor Moon fan, so I just did it so we can all do it. But if I was there by myself, I would have been happy.
I'm the same way, and I used to do movie nights like pre-COVID, and then I was doing some COVID like digitally, and it's a lot of fun because, like you said, especially I think as an adult, these type of experiences aren't really common, and I actually was, it's not tweet, I was threading about this because I've been on threads about like I love how like in Korea and Japan, because I'm huge into boys love, and they be having boy love cafes all the time.
Yeah.
And like themed drinks, you could get standees, and I'm like, that's one of my dreams, to own a cafe and do that. But Japan especially, they're just so big on fandom in particular, and they'll do that not just for boys love, but for, you know, I know Clamp had like a collab recently, and it's just so much fun. And a lot of that stuff is like not available here, and if it is, it's like targeted towards kids, or, you know, not like adult focused, because we have the money. Hello, we have the coin to spend. So I love that, and I obviously we're not too far apart, so I do hope in the future to be able to go to one of the events. But I wanted to bring it up because I think it's just such a fun way, and it's like, yes, like podcast content creation is online, but there is a community there to be explored and to be a part of, and bringing these events to like in person, especially because we have like a mutuals and stuff, so I'll be like, oh my god, this person was there, and you had this person on episode 75, and I'm a fan of them.
And people make friends, like people become friends at these events, and it makes me so happy. I'm just like, yes. Oh yeah, and I do plan to do more. I do want to do another Sailor Moon Day party. I'm thinking of some other stuff for next year as well. And so there'll be more to come.
I'll be waiting, because I will be there at the day party. I'm going to book my babysitter in advance.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Mom, you better be ready. I'm going to the day party. But I'm very excited to see what's to come. And now that, I mean, we've been talking about Sailor Moon this whole time, but we're really going to get into it. And I think I should have said this at the beginning, but I'm still, you know, getting used to the intro and the format. So I have invited Victoria on to be the expert on Sailor Moon. And just school us on all the things, you know, the wonder of Sailor Moon. That's the title of this episode. And when I thought of this series, I was like, we definitely need Victoria on. We were going back and forth what anime you were going to do, but Sailor Moon is just such a classic, and I feel like you could say everything about it and you still haven't said enough. There's still so much more to discover. So I did want to, because some of these shows that I'm going to be having guests on, I know about. Some of them I'm not. Oh, look, I have this. Sorry, this is so random. I have this little Sailor Moon kitty.
That's so cute.
Center. Let me bring her down.
Yeah.
Sorry, Goku. There you go.
Love that.
That's like a little Goku lamp. But so some of these animes I'm familiar with, some of them I'm not. And I will give a little brief background where I'm coming into this conversation. So obviously I'm a Sailor Moon fan. No doubt about it. Sailor Moon was the first anime that I watched. Didn't know it was an anime. I was obsessed with it, and I believe as I got older, I've always loved it. I have the manga, but since becoming like a full-fledged adult, since college, I haven't like gotten back into the series. I know when I was in college, I did like a whole rewatch, watched it subbed, and you know, that was a new experience, because if you grew up with Sailor Moon in the States, you have like the specific dub, Serena, Darien. So I watched the like sub, and I know like they've re-released Crystal and stuff, and you know, they reanimated Sailor Moon, made it more faithful to the manga. I have not seen that yet. It's on my list, but everything's on my list at this point. So I'm coming into this conversation, of course, as a Moonies fan, because I certainly believe whatever your level, you don't got to know everything to be a Sailor Moon fan, as you believe that as well.
I do.
But I am like so excited because I love getting the perspective of the experts, and I'm calling you the expert. That's who you are to me. So without further ado, let's get into Sailor Moon. So what is Sailor Moon, and what is it about?
So, Sailor Moon is originally a manga, came out in 1991, sorry, and then was adapted into an anime by Toei Animation in 1992, and then it kind of ran concurrently until 1997. So, it is about a group of girls who get superpowers and have to fight against different monsters who have various aims, usually take over the world, take over Earth, take over the universe. Um, and then they later figure out that they're actually like the reincarnations of their former selves from like when the moon had a moon kingdom, and then there were also kingdoms on different planets, and so they were the princesses and like protectors of their respective planets and moon. And now they're reincarnated on Earth with these powers to defend Earth against new threats.
I forget that incarnation, the reincarnation part.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh yeah, that's like when it got serious. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, this is reincarnation
Lord.
plots. Like it goes deep.
It does. It does. I think that's the thing. Like people don't realize like there's like actually layers to this show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think it's because those also get into like the later, more serious episodes
Hmm.
when that happens. But I don't know why I forgot that because I obviously I know about the Moon Kingdom. Like, hello, I'm a resident.
Hmm.
Uh, but I was like, oh yeah, they all are reincarnations.
Hmm.
And when did you get introduced to Sailor Moon?
Yeah. So I think I was like 6. My brother, I have 3 brothers, so they're all into anime, but mostly like Berserk and Ninja Scroll and a lot of those like 80s shows. But so because he was into anime, like one day he was just like, "Oh, there's this show coming on. I think you'll like it." And I was like, "Okay, I'll check it out, whatever." And then, ended up being Sailor Moon on Toonami, and I actually caught the first episode, and I was just hooked. Like I was just hooked. I don't know, I don't remember everything from that time period, but I just know that like people like for my birthdays and Christmases, like I was getting Sailor Moon merch because I must have been talking about it a lot, and I know I was into it. Like I was watching it every day alongside Dragon Ball Z and then Tenchi Muyo, like every single day from like 4 to 5:30. That was my schedule after school. So that was it, and I always find it funny because I remember him saying that like, oh, there's this show coming on you might like, and it's so funny thinking back to it now. It's like, yeah, no, I did like it. I liked it a lot, actually.
That was your canon event. It
Yeah,
changed
it
your life.
was. Completely pivoted my entire life. That's all.
Yeah, and it's so funny because I'm like, back then you had to be very intentional about TV viewing.
Hmm.
Like, if you
Right.
were watching, you could miss it and
Mhm.
never know about it ever.
You know, that's why even to this day, like I remember what time it came on because like came on at 4:30 every day, and then Dragon Ball would come out at 5.
You had to, like, that's it. You had to
You
be
have to
there.
know, yeah.
And when did you realize then, like, that Sailor Moon was your favorite anime?
See, I saw this question on here, and I still don't know because like I feel like it was such a natural thing where like I was getting anime merch, like Sailor Moon merch from people, and it just like became a favorite thing. But also like Lisa Frank at the time I really liked, and Sanrio a little bit. So, and I don't think I didn't know it was an anime at first either, like you. So I think it was probably like later on when actually it went off of the air, and then I think like a few years I was just like, wait, what happened to that show that like I really liked? And I think I went online looking for it and was able to buy the some bootleg DVDs and rewatch it in middle school. And I think that's when I was like, oh, this is still really good. I really love this. Give me more. And then I was actually able to watch the later seasons too. When I was 16, I finally got to watch Sailor Moon Stars, which is the final season, and that's like one of my favorite seasons. And that was like, all right, this is it. And at that point, I knew what anime was too. So I think it was around then, like 14 to 16, which is funny because that's like the Sailor Moon ages.
That's like you were their age.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always think with these shows that have been in our lives for so long, like we love them, but then we discover like other shows. Like
Hmm.
when I was young, I was obsessed with Barney, and now I'm
Me
not.
too.
Barney ain't in my top 5,
At all.
but when I was young, you can tell me nothing about Barney.
I loved Barney when I was, and I don't even remember loving Barney, but I just know I always had a Barney doll with me, or like a little plush, whatever. And
Listen,
tell me nothing.
it was there.
Hmm.
Barney had a choke. My mom used to record on VHS Barney. Like, so when it was on TV, I was ready to go with Barney.
Listen, it was it. It was it. It was our Bluey.
You know, yes. So back to Sailor Moon, which I mean, we honestly we could probably make a connection with Barney and Sailor Moon. It's there. We
Yeah,
just haven't untapped into it yet.
self love.
um, so when you think about, I mean, obviously now you're grown, you're an adult, and Sailor Moon, kind of like we were talking about earlier, it's just a huge impact in your life, and it's not just your life; in the lives of a lot of people. What do you think it is about Sailor Moon that makes it timeless? Like it's 30, what is it, 31 years now? Or is it?
Yeah, 31. Because last year was 30. Right. Yeah. I'm like, it's like the same year as me. So I'm like, how old am I? What? What's that? What's this? It's maybe 32 actually. Anyway, um, so actually, the thing I didn't mention earlier when we are talking about the premise of the show is, I think, while you're also having them fight against these monsters, you're also like going through their lives. So like their relationships, their friendships, their school life, different things that they're dealing with, as teenagers. And I think that is such a important part of this. Yeah, even to this day, you don't really see, you know, groups of women who are just friends together and just talking and hanging out. Like you still like to this day, like you rarely see that, and like where they're healthy friendships and they're just like enjoying time with each other. Also queer couples, we get Sailor Neptune and Sailor Uranus. Like again, to this day, like that's still a progressive thing where they're like the healthiest couple on the show. Get trans characters and Sailor Moon stars. So I think like the show just being really progressive, but also showing like these like really like cool friendships and relationships between people, is one of the things. And a strong like woman lead, girl lead, who's like super powerful and like it's just like cute at the same time. It's like, yeah, I can destroy the universe, but also I'm wearing a skirt. Um, I think it's really cool.
I think that too with the especially the friendship aspect. I've always been like a huge like girls girl,
Hmm.
in the sense like I've always been a friends person. Like always valued friendships more than relationships, sometimes to a detriment. But I'm thinking like, do I attribute that to Sailor Moon? Because I ever since I was young,
Yeah.
like I've had such a strong um thing, and of course there's romance in Sailor Moon, but like Darian don't even be there half the time.
Mm-mm.
Like
We get
it
about
was
6 minutes per episode.
like he's not always there, and I mean it's to a joke, but I do think also I don't think he's useless, but that's for another time. I don't think he's entirely useless, I should say,
Hmm.
but it definitely is that like because I remember when I found people that liked Sailor Moon, and it was always like, well, I'm Sailor Moon and I'm Sailor Jupiter and I'm this person, and
Right.
I feel like that's such a like a core to the show where you had five people that you could identify with
Hmm.
versus just one, and they really were friends. Like they
Yeah.
picked on each other, like they had like little petty arguments, or people were making fun of Usagi like being lazy and her meatball hair and getting bad grades, but at the end of the day like they still like rode out for each other.
Yeah, definitely. Like they had each other's backs at the end of the day. Like they were gonna be there for each other. Even then, this I feel like that's like real friendships. Like you're gonna have like maybe little fights here and there. You're gonna pick on somebody, not in a cruel way, but just like like oh so and so, like you said, meatball here. Like why are you getting bad grades? Like you need to like study more. And in a way, like looking out for her too, because I'm like you do need to study more. You do need to get better grades. And so I think yeah, it's just even like I said to this day, like I rarely see like friendships like that shown on TV between
Yeah,
girls.
I agree. I feel like it's rare, or if there are friendships, like they don't pass like is it the Bechdel test where it's always
Yeah.
like they was talking about men. Like that I feel like
Hmm.
was a very not them the purpose of them hanging out at all. Like they wasn't really out here talking about guys.
Yeah, like they would, but they would also talk about school and they would talk about other things. Talk about who's the monster they got to fight and how they're gonna defeat the villain. So yeah, I think Sailor Moon would pass the Bechdel test. I think it's a Bechdel test.
Yeah, I think so too. We're gonna rewrite history if not, and say that it does.
I agree.
Because it depends which version you watched, but I definitely think that it does.
Absolutely.
I mean, and we see like the things that get like memed and the things that get gifed,
Mhm.
like they do. There's it's always about the girls and what the girls
Yeah.
are doing. Um, with that, so as we were talking about like the different themes in Sailor Moon, I want to know what is something about Sailor Moon that people always get wrong.
Yeah, so I have a few. um,
Yeah, I'm ready. I want them all.
I think one thing people think there's no like fighting, um, which is just not true. Like Sailor Jupiter throws hands often. They all have
Yes.
elemental powers as well. So like you got Sailor Mars throwing like fireballs at people and very like strong attacks. Like you look at like Goku's Kamehameha and like what's the difference between like Sailor Moon's moon healing, halation? They're vaporizing people. Um, and I think it's just seen differently. But yeah, they fight. I think people think Sailor Moon is weak. She is not. Like I said, she's vaporizing people. She has very strong attacks. She can destroy planets if she wanted to. I'm sure, knocking out enemies with one one go. Um, and then on the other hand, I think people don't know like the show's actually really funny. Like I think on top of it being like a magical girl show and an action adventure show, it's it's really a comedy. Like you'll watch Sailor Moon and will be cracking up, like laughing. That's really one of the reasons I love it because it's all of those three things. I'm like, oh, okay, I get girls, like cuteness, but it's also funny and there's also action. Like those are the three things I love in a show and romance. Uh,
Listen, I'm always for romance.
yeah, just just a little bit, just a little bit. Um,
Sprinkle, sprinkle.
and then the last thing, which kind of probably contradicts what I just said, but it's also a really dark show. Like, even though it's like really cute and like hearts and purple and pink and blue, um, I think the show kind of deals with like depression and jealousy and what else? There was something else I was just thinking about, but it deals with like a lot of like things like the first season Sailor Moon essentially sees, spoiler alert, all of her friends die and like her boyfriend who she just like realizes like you know her destined love or whatever like gets kidnapped, so she's traumatized and she's like I don't want to fight anymore, like I'm tired of seeing people die, like I'm tired of this, I don't want to do it, and still has to do it anyways because it's like girl, the earth is in trouble. Um and then as she's fighting like all the villains, she sees like, each of her friends get taken down one by one, and she still at the end has to like defeat the final villain, Queen Beryl. Um, and then the next season comes, and she's just like, I just want to be a normal girl. Like I don't want this, and still has to like fight through that and just be like, you know what, like it's my responsibility. Like if I don't do this, then like Earth is doomed essentially. But it's really like it gets really dark, and like the other girls as well go through different stuff too. Like Ami is like worried about her grades and not being perfect, and um Lita, or I'm gonna go back and forth with names, but
Me too.
Sailor Jupiter, I'll say Sailor Jupiter, is like has her love life stuff, and she feels insecure about her height and like being a little more like tomboyish, but also like wants a boyfriend. And Sailor Mars, like, she wants to take over for the Father's Temple. She's worried about her grandfather and his health, but also, dealing with her own stuff and love life and everything else. And then she also, like, fell for Sailor Moon's guy and had to deal with, like, having to let him go. So it's a lot. Like, I feel like it's a lot. And it can get really dark, but it's also really funny. And they all throw hands.
I think this is a perfect show element. But that darkness, I think, is so important
Mm-hmm.
for people to like recognize that it's there. And I do agree that it's definitely something that people get wrong. And I think it's one of those because they see the sparkly transformations and like the Sailor Moon magical girl transformation has been parodied even in American media,
Mm-hmm.
it's a trope, so it exists in a lot of places, and that really throws people off. But I remember like bawling my eyes out at the end of like when I rewatched it in college, and I was like no, because it's
Yeah.
like they knew that she was the one that like your destiny, you're the one that have to go on and to like accept that responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
like as friends, to be like we can't go on. It's for you. Like, we're all doing this. And, like, you literally sacrifice your life for Usagi to, like, finish everything off. And then some of the stuff that the villains were doing, too, was, like, that's, like, when you, like, think about, like, real-world consequence, you're like, like, that's kind of messed up. Like, when Molly, I don't know if that was her sub-name, too, but when Molly was with that guy, and he was, like, playing her, but really, like, she was just somebody that was kind of, like, insecure, and she didn't really have, like, that confidence in herself. And finally, somebody starts paying attention to her, and she's, like, head over heels, even though they were the bad guy.
Yeah. Then having them like grow and like, him actually developing like, I don't know feelings for her, but like at least like a care for her. Because I don't know if he was reciprocating those, and that's like a whole other thing. But yeah, then having him die like in front of her, like, and her having to deal with that heartbreak, like that's so heartbreaking. And also, I should go back. So previously, when you asked me about favorite episodes, I actually had that voice actor on the show, and also Susan Roman from the original dub, and those are two of my favorite episodes. Mary Long, that's her name, because they both break out into the voices on the show, and I'm just like immediately back to 6 years old, and it was great.
It is, and I hear Molly's voice in my head so perfectly,
Yeah.
because they gave her this accent, and you're like, girl, what? Dick Dub, what was you doing? DIC.
I actually learned why that they did that. So like in the anime, the Japanese version, Molly's supposed to be like from the mountains, like the
Osaka dialect.
Osaka. Yeah, because that's actually her last name. It's Naru Osaka, and so in the American dub, they wanted to give her like a different accent from everyone as well, and so that's the accent she went with.
This reminds me of this meme somebody did when they were like anime American dub when somebody has an Osakan accent and they're like a rancher and they're like a Western. But I do think it's funny that they incorporated that, because there's so much in the dialogue that when they make fun of people or they bring attention to somebody's dialect, but it's so iconic. Like I just you just can't forget.
Molly, yeah, it's great.
It was like, where was this? It makes sense, but it is like those plots, and it's like, I think Sailor Moon too, like a lot of shows that are like get very like monster of the week, so people are just like, okay, like whatever, but it's like every monster was doing something that had some serious consequence, that was messing with the people, ruining people's relationships. Like these weren't just some monsters, like they were affecting people.
They really were.
But alongside that, with what people get wrong, I also want to know, what is an unpopular opinion that you have about Sailor Moon?
Okay, I have 2, maybe 3. So you mentioned it earlier. Like, I love to make fun of Tuxedo Mask. It's like one of my favorite things, but I don't think he's completely useless. I do think his encouragement and support of Sailor Moon is like an important part of her development. Because like she's also insecure, and she also is like needs like a little self-confidence boost sometimes. Like she gets that from her friends, and she also gets that from him. And I think he comes in and he's able to distract the villain, while she can get it together. Like she's like, I'm tired. He's like, I don't want to do this. This is hard. And he's like, all right, here's a rose. Villain's distracted for a minute. Collect yourself, and let's do this. And I think that's just such an important thing. Like it really shows a good example of a supportive partner that can like stand back and let you do your thing, but also knows when to like step in and like help how they can. Which is why the show is so good. So
listen, I agree, and I do want to pull over on this because it's also, like I said, my unpopular opinion, and I feel like it also showcases like the show is Sailor Moon. It's not Sailor Moon and Tuxedo Mask. Like, it was never... Their love is a part of the story. They've already been together in the past before they reincarnated. So it's like, when people say, oh, he's useless, he didn't do anything, that's the point. I don't want to see him take the monsters out and save Sailor Moon, because she's not a damsel in distress. She could do it herself.
Exactly.
The point is that he's just there, like you said, a supportive partner. He just provides a little timeout. Referee blowing the whistle. I'm gonna do the distraction. That's what the rose is. It's like a red herring. Like, look at this. she gonna get it together. And I don't understand the critiques where it's like he's useless. His purpose is small, and that's the point, because it's Sailor Moon.
Exactly.
The Senshis. Sailor Moon, Sailor Senshis. Not Tuxedo Mask Show. I was waiting for you to bring this up, as I've been ready.
I see. You're so right though. Like, and I think it is really fun to make fun of him, because he is just pops up out of nowhere, and I'm just like, where did you get the Santa Claus outfit, sir? Like, why did you do this? But
that was hilarious.
It's really funny. But otherwise, like, I think like he serves a purpose, and it's not, and the purpose isn't to defeat the villain or to like cause like major damage to a villain, but it's just to help Sailor Moon. And he does get like kidnapped and brainwashed a lot, but like, he's not as strong as her. He can't help it.
We all gotta have something to look forward to. We gotta have somebody to fight for, and he's that for her.
That too.
She's not that for him.
Yeah. So my other thing though, so when Seiya was introduced, I felt like he was just such a good match for her. Like, they had a lot more chemistry, honestly. And they were really cute, and I never thought I would be rooting for someone other than Mamoru Darien. But when he came onto the scene, I was like, I wouldn't be mad if they ended up together. Like, I've been convinced. So I'm team either or, but I love them both. And I love Seiya. Like, I'm a huge Seiya fan.
I think that's such like, I didn't get that far in my anime watching, so I still have to see that. But I, of course, seen like the clips and the gifs on social media. Yeah. And the chemistry be chemistry, and it be there.
Yeah, they're so cute. They're so cute together.
And I think that's something that Sailor Moon does well, because a lot of times when there is that one true, like, you already know this couple's endgame, they're going to be together. The introduction of a potential rival is always hit or miss. Like, it's always kind of like, all right, get out of here. Like, you're ruining my couple. Or it's like, you are, it's done so well that you're like, leave the main person. But it's hard to find like a balance where I feel like, damn, you got some good points, but you could also be like, this person, like, I want her to be with Mamoru. He looked good. Like, Seiya look good. I would fold. I would.
Listen, Mamoru was gone. Like, in the show, like, she doesn't know that he's been like killed or kidnapped. So she just thinks he ghosted her. So I'm like, Seiya, what's up? Like, I get it.
That's when they slide in. That's when they slide in. When you think she don't know. She's like, damn, my man left me.
Right.
I got a new man in 2 seconds. A new man pulled up.
I'll say that to the left of you in a minute. But
a replacement ready.
But yeah, so because there's a few shows I feel like that have like two love interests that I'm like equally okay with. Like, usually I have a clear, like, I'm this team, I'm this person. But this one I was just like, ooh, I don't know, actually. I do not know.
I just had to like Google it real quick. I'm like, let me refresh my memory on what it was looking like.
He's fine.
Yeah, and it, it's funny because I read this BL manga where there is a second lead that I'm very like, the author said this one pairing was canon. I'm not even going to look another way. Like, this is who I'm very vanilla in that sense, where I root for the main love interest.
Me too.
Even if they acting up. But this manhwa, like, they got the second male lead, and they messed up because they introduced them like at the same time, and I want the second male lead to win, and I want him to be endgame, and people rooting for like the first, and I'm like, no. But the story isn't finished, and the author said that they're not sure which way it's gonna go, and I'm hoping my guy wins.
All right.
I'm hoping that he wins because he's the unconventional one, the gangster from the past. Ooh. And I think he could do it.
Okay. Ooh, I love it. Yeah, I'm the same way. Like, I'm traditional, and like, I'm like, all right, this is the main couple. This is the person she's supposed to get with. Like, this is it. I'm in. So this is one of the few times where I was just like, wait, no, I equally like this. So you got me.
I feel like I shared the same, obviously, as I went on a rant about Mamoru and his usefulness to the Sailor Moon universe. But I don't know if I think they're like, because I feel like the one thing with Sailor Moon too is that like it's something that a lot of people know about, and it is very like just mainstream in the conversation when it comes to anime. But I think it's similar to Dragon Ball Z, where people like saw it when they were younger but haven't revisited it when they're older. So a lot of people don't really like have like much knowledge past what we saw on Toonami, and don't really know like, and not saying like you gotta know the manga or whatever, but I do feel like when it comes to conversations and opinions, I'm like, if you haven't finished the series, like where you at with that?
I feel similarly because I do think a lot of people, like, especially if you're coming with criticism on the show, and I'm like, have you seen the third season or the fifth season? Because I think those are like the strongest seasons. And the first two seasons, I feel like, are a lot of like building, like getting to know the characters, getting to know the story, getting to know like the back. Like, it's when you learn about the reincarnation and all that stuff. Um, and then the third season is like, all right, you know all this, we can just do story. Um, and so I do think like a lot of people when they criticize it, they are like thinking back to like what they watched on Toonami and like their impressions of it then. And I'm like, you got to rewatch it with like adult eyes and new eyes and like even skip to the third season if you have to. I feel like if you kind of feel like you know the show or like the premise and stuff, I think you can maybe do that. Maybe I don't know. I think it's hard though because I think getting through all of it helps you appreciate like where all the characters are by season three. But but yeah, I do think a lot of but a lot of, I mean, and again, like if you loved it when you first watched it and haven't revisited it, you are still in the Sailor Moon fan club. You are still a Sailor Moon fan. Like no judgment on that, but I do feel like if you're criticizing the show and you haven't watched it since then, I'm like, well, watch it first again before you
Yes.
like come back and say like it's bad or like whatever.
I feel that way a lot about a lot of stuff, and we've talked about this offline too, where I'm like, I don't take people's anime's opinion seriously because I'm like, I agree where you don't need to know like read the manga or know the backstory.
Yeah.
But I do think that helps when you're criticizing, because sometimes I'm just like, well, did we watch this? Did we watch the same show? Like, what you talking about?
Right. I'm like, what
Because
you
it's just
mean?
so
That happened in
much.
this episode. Like, hmm
But I do think too, like it's just I'm also biased because I feel like Sam, when I'm like, this is untouchable. Like you can't don't be talking bad about my show.
yeah.
I am very emotionally attached to things.
Thanks.
But I did want to know because in the realm of unpopular, something that I feel like comes up now because we have the Sailor Moon Crystal, which people may not know is I don't know, I feel like I hate the word reboot, but it's basically like in terms of anime terms that anime fans will understand, it's like the brotherhood treatment where they went back, they created a whole new show, animated Sailor Moon, to make it a more faithful adaptation to the manga. So I wanted to ask about that because it's something that I know like a lot of OG fans are torn on, or a lot of people haven't watched it because they may not like the art style, or they kind of like the original's my jam. Have you watched it, and what are your feelings about Crystal?
Yeah. I have watched it. I share a lot of the same criticisms as other people where I think the first two seasons, like the art style, just I don't like it. I get they were trying to like match the manga style where it's like very long limbs and like more model like, but they just look too dainty. I don't know. It's just like it didn't work. Like I really love like the girls in the 90s anime because even though they're not like plus size, they do look a little like I don't know, like fuller maybe. Like when they're kicking, it's like, oh yeah, they look like they could kick. And not that that means anything because like you can be any size and fight, bring down somebody. But yeah, I thought like the 3D animations, transformations were off. Like I didn't feel like they put in the budget as much for the show. And then I feel like the pacing was a little too quick. I think the good thing about the 90s version is that like you do technically get like filler. Like I said before, they were running at the same time, so it's kind of similar to Naruto, but not in a bad way, where they added stuff to kind of fill it out because the manga wasn't complete yet because they were running at the same time. But in those episodes, you get more like monster of the week stuff. That's where you learn a little bit more about the girls. You learn a little bit more about their backstories. They get a little more personality. So I think it really like helped fill it out. And I think the best would be like some kind of combination of the two, But I do think like the anime like gave us like some really cool stuff. The '90s anime gave us some really cool stuff that weren't in the manga. But yeah, Crystal first two seasons don't love it. I think by the third season they brought in some of like the old character designers and it got better. So I like that season a lot better. And then I really like the movie that came out, Eternal, which is basically Sailor Moon Crystal season 4. They just made it into a 2-part movie, so that one I thought was really good. Like I loved the animation on that. I do think still it's like the colors are still too muted for me though. Like I wish it would just be a little bit more vibrant. But I'm really excited for Sailor Moon Cosmos, which is the Sailor Moon Crystal season 5 technically, which has not been released in the States yet, so hopefully soon.
And we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when the Sailor Moon Crystal was originally airing, because there had been a lot. It was airing week to week, and there had been a lot of issues with the art and the animation.
Yeah.
So much so that when then the Blu-ray came out, they had to go back and fix a lot of the stuff. Because I agree with you. I don't know if it was like the budget as well as like the timeline that they had for it, but the initial animations, because I was deep in the Tumblr back on those days, like. They would be like 10 posts, like here's shot by shot how they messed this up. And I, like I said, I haven't watched it, but something that I know about like the Sailor Moon manga, it's like it's a very specific shoujo style that does not translate to animation, and very few anime are animated in that style because it's not an anime style. Like
it's for manga. I just
this doesn't compute.
I will say this, which is just the severity of like how bad I thought it was originally. Like, you know, when they announced this like new adaptation of the manga, a reboot, whatever, I was super excited. Like, this is a new Sailor Moon thing. It came out in 2014, so the show has been off for like almost 20 years at this point. Like, we haven't got anything new. And well, there is a live action show, but anyway. And so I was really excited, but like I started watching it and I stopped because I did not like it. And I was just like, you know what? It's just not for me, hopefully. And I will say one thing though, the reboot I've noticed, it has brought younger fans into the show, so that makes me really happy because I'm starting to catch like, you know, 6, 7-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 15-year-olds are like Sailor Moon Crystals, how they got into it. So I'm happy for that at least.
Yeah, it's always going to be hard when it's something like such a beloved classic, and I see what they were trying to do. But it's hard. I did want to ask because I know, so they had the Sailor Moon, the dub that we all grew up with, which was DIC or Dick Dubs. And then they redubbed Sailor Moon, but I haven't watched the redub. And now that I'm like older, I can't watch the original dub anymore. It's too much time has passed, but I haven't watched it, so I'm unaware. Did they like fix the translation changes that were done in the 90s, like making the say Uranus and Neptune cousins? Like, did they fix the localization of that? Yeah,
so they fixed it. So like the dub, so now the dub and the subtitle version are basically like one in one on story, wording, and everything. So it's so that's why they did like the complete redub. So yeah, so like queer couples are actually like, you know, they're queer couples and not cousins. And yeah, all of that is fixed. And like also Zoisite and Kunzite were also a couple, so they fixed that as well. Because I think there was a woman voiced actress in the original dub and they changed it to a male voice actor. So like,
I know that's right. Make it right. It's never like, they're like, American audiences could never, and we're like, actually it's much weirder that you made them go, like, we know, like, we're not the
Someone pointed that out on the podcast and I never thought of it that way. They were like, you would rather us believe in incest over a queer couple? Like, why was that okay?
Yeah. Why? And it's something of the time. Like, it's not just particular to Sailor Moon, because a lot of I mean, I watched Cardcaptor Sakura and Digimon and Pokemon, and like, you know, they change so much to make it make sense for American audiences. And I don't know if they think we're just, I mean, yes, it's targeted in the kids hour, but kids are a lot smarter than they gave us credit for.
Yeah.
And I'm glad now I see the tides changing, and it has been changing, I think, as we were getting older with shows like Avatar, where it's like you have these shows that have a lot of nuance that like you're not thinking just kids are like these little dumb kids that don't know what they're watching.
Yeah. I think
I'm
some
glad
of it
the
too was
times
like not thinking it was like appropriate for kids, which is silly.
Yeah, exactly. Get it to. I mean, they've gotten it together, so
Yeah.
I don't need to tell them to get it together.
Right. But one of my goals is to like get somebody who is in charge of that decision and just ask them like, what was the thought process on that? I just need to know.
Who did this? I know. The podcast Yodoya did, Anime in America, went into a lot of that. Like, I recommend that podcast to everybody because it's so good. But we gonna find them. That's what we need next on the Sailor Moon fan club. Where are those people?
Right. I really want to. Like, that is a goal. That is a goal.
But I mean, the times were the times.
Yeah.
And now we know better. But that would be an interesting guess, like to see like, when they were watching it back then, like, did they predict the outcome like of how it is now? Like, did you see this coming? Did you know you had gold in your hands?
Right. Yeah.
It could be so many things. But as we're getting to the end and talking about gold, I want to know, when you think about Sailor Moon, its legacy, it's about to be 31 years. Oh yeah, 30. It's 31 years. Next year will be 32 years.
I think so.
And how still mainstream conversation it is, how loved and beloved it is. What do you think Sailor Moon's legacy is?
I think, well, definitely, like you said, transformation sequences. Like, well, there have been countless shows that have their own transformation sequences. Where there's The Simpsons, probably Family Guy. Like, people dress up as Sailor Moon to this day. But I think, like, again, like those female friendships, just being powerful girls, saving the world, setting the like tone for that, I think, or the standard for that moving forward. Like, when you look at shows now, like the new She-Ra or Star versus the Evil World, I think, Star versus the Evil, something like that. Miraculous Ladybug, like all of these shows, Steven Universe, like they're all kind of inspired from Sailor Moon. So I think it really provided that framework of like love and friendship kind of saving the world, but also like this like powerful women, powerful girls saving the world, and also just like cute, fun, comedic shows that show you like, I don't know, girl power.
Yes, it is. It's funny because I did an episode on YouTube about Magic Knight Ray Earth, and it was something because of Sailor Moon's success that it was like one of the inspirations behind it, because it like Sailor Moon was just doing so well, and I think something that I thought about as you're talking about the legacy of it is that as girls, like, you don't really get a lot of media where the girls are, front and center and as adults, I would say, because I feel like, that the young middle school age, like, they're definitely, Winx Club, Totally Spies, like, that existed. And then, but at a certain point, like, that no longer is relevant or something that adult women consume. And I feel like Sailor Moon is something where it is that timeless where, you're 30 plus, 40 plus, there's still fans, there's still people watching the show, because it's like universal that these strong girls can just do anything.
Yeah, I mean,
they can save the world.
They can. I'll say I still watch Totally Spies though, but
no, absolutely, like, Totally Spies. Listen to Victoria's episode where I go into a lot of the Totally Spies randomly.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great.
Yes.
But yeah.
Well, is there anything else, any fun facts or any tidbit about Sailor Moon that you want to share with us that maybe the regular person like me may not know? I mean, I'm not regular. I shouldn't say that.
Yeah, I was like,
somebody else listening.
Yeah. Well, the first one, I think my favorite fun fact is always that Sailor Moon, well, one of my favorite fun facts, Sailor Moon creator Naoko Takeuchi is married to Yoshihiro Togashi. Yes, I see her Yu Hakusho, creator of Yu Hakusho and Hunter x Hunter. And I think the other thing, there is a live action Sailor Moon show that was released in Japan in the early 2000s. It's actually really good, and it's also a different story from the manga and the anime. So if you've seen and watched both of those, you can still watch it and like see a different story. And then another thing, so in the original dub, Sailor Moon was almost named Victoria instead of Serena, which like
that would have been a cute name. I mean,
uh,
Sailor Victoria, that's you now, but
yeah, but it makes me so happy. But I like downloaded. They have like the original like audio where they were gonna use it. So I downloaded that. So I'm like, I'm gonna use this for something. I don't know what, but
that it would be so cute. Yes.
mm-hmm.
Get somebody to make you like a beat and make it like your intro song.
Yeah, that's the goal. We'll see. We'll see. I gotta figure it out.
Manifesting this happen.
And the last thing you may not know, so I actually learned this not too long, or a couple of years ago, but more recently, is that Luna and Artemis are technically not cats. They are aliens who look like cats from the planet Mao. So like, have you seen like Guardians of the Galaxy and you think like the Flurkin? It's like a similar thing. That I mean, they're not like deadly like the Flurkin, but they're like actually like technically aliens who just look like cats.
Every day I learn new things. They're still cats to me. Get out of here. They're never going to be not cats.
Yeah, they're cats.
I just listen. I love them though so much. Who doesn't love them? They're the best.
They're super cute.
Well, I of course am mind blown as per usual. I've talked to you, and I could talk about Sailor Moon for hours. But this has been so much fun. Of course, getting your expert opinion on Sailor Moon, and having I feel like Sailor Moon is very wonderful, and it is. We've named 3,000 reasons why it's still worth watching and so timeless and so perfect. But as we're wrapping up, as I said that like 30 times, I want to ask you, what can we look forward from you in this episode comes out in 2024. We're recording this in the past, spoiler alert. And it's funny you mentioned Yu Yu Hakusho because that's the first episode, and I scheduled it perfectly. So these two episodes are like a couple. What can we be expecting from you, whether it's Sailor Moon related, whether it's not Sailor Moon related, in 2024? What should we be looking out for?
Yeah, so definitely coming back with the Sailor Moon Fan Club podcast. Been on hiatus for about a year now, so new guests, new episodes coming out. Definitely more events. I plan to do another Sailor Moon Day party, most likely in June. So that'll be happening. More events in general next year. Probably more movie screenings. If Sailor Moon Cosmos comes out on Netflix, definitely want to do something with that. Yeah, just thinking through different things. Yeah, I might do a spin-off podcast too, actually. I haven't said this out loud, but that might be happening at some point, and I'll be hitting you up as well.
I'm ready. I'm always ready. And then since your bio states you're working on a comic as well as a YA book, what can we know anything about that? Is there anything in the works for that we're waiting for?
Yeah, definitely. So like I'm working with an artist now, so like I'm down to like we have character designs down and getting a pitch package together. So either gonna pitch it or do Kickstarter. Haven't decided yet. But yeah, it's basically a hip hop inspired magical girl series. I love hip hop and I love Sailor Moon, so I was like, let me combine these two things. And it is about a rapper going on tour, and her crew. So like her makeup artist, manager, bunch of different people. Is 5 of them, and they're all magical girls, and they're fighting against monsters as she goes on tour, and they're trying to figure out like what's going on. So that's that.
I love that. That's so fun.
Yeah,
that's so fun.
Excited. I'm really, really excited because I've always wanted to write a manga or a comic book. But self-doubt and a bunch of different things. I was like, I can't draw, I can't do this. And I'm like, well, writers work with artists, duh. So I was like, I'll do that. And then found an artist. She's great. We've been working together like all of this year pretty much, trying to like nail down like everything. And yeah, so I'm like finalizing the story, hopefully this week, because I've been telling myself I need to work on that. And that's one of my 2024 resolutions, is to like get all that together and then put it out. And then yeah, the YA novel, I need to get back to that, but it's actually a story I've been working on since I was like really young, and then like I've always wanted to publish a book, and then I was like, well, let me just like expand on that story because I like had it in my head, and it's just a young black girl trying to find a missing princess. So
I love that. Listen, I'm ready. I mean, I'm ready. I'm always going to support anything and everything that you do, because that's what it is. And of course, links to everything that Victoria does, has done, will be doing, of course, will be in the description of this episode as well as in the YouTube description box because this is a video format as well. And I'm just so excited. Thank you so much for being here. Of course, we always have fun. And for you guys listening, if you like this episode, if you loved it, be sure to rate it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever they got ratings, write it. Go to your Walmart, go to that bulletin board.
Do it.
Print out your review. I'm here for it. Whatever you want to do to support the show. And, share with all the Moonies in your life who love Sailor Moon and probably didn't know some of the things that we talked about today. Because there was a lot of gems dropped here. But thank you all so much for listening. Victoria, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.